Hello Enchanted Ones, and a blessed Ostara to you all. Today join me as I celebrate Ostara, making simple, magical DIYs that are inspired by the forest and solve some mysteries within the wood upon the equinox. Drink magical teas, do some kitchen witchery, and find magic in the simple mundane acts I do every day. So sit back, relax, and keep on watching. Oh, and I need to do this. Okay. Hang on. Hello Enchanted Ones, and welcome to Fairies Island. Happy spring, happy Ostara to you all. I hope wherever you are in the world there is a little sign of new life growing. Even if it's the smallest little thing, it can give us such joy and promise for the new year ahead. It is very much settling in here, and it's growing too quick for my liking, and I have to venture here so much this time of year to appreciate that before everything grows too much that I cannot venture here anymore, and that's a very sad thing. So you'll find me on Fairies Island every single day. What I'm so inspired by this year in the forest is the forest floor though. If you look around here, you'll see this beautiful green, like a green like no other, and it comes from the wood sorrel, it comes from the bluebells, it comes from the new grasses that are growing, this undertone of yellow, this baby green, and that mixed in with the life of the previous year the rustic browns, the earthy tones that are slowly dying away and giving the earth nutrients for the new life to grow. It's just a beautiful combination and a colour palette that just describes who I am to my core. And you'll hear in this video the phrase a lot, as above, so below. That phrase is so fitting for this time of year when it's the equinox, 12 hours day, 12 hours night. You have this balancing out of energy, and what I've tried to do is come up with ways that we can honour the equinox and that we can honour ourselves and try to balance the energy out, because when I'm really creative sometimes I can't just be really creative, otherwise I'll be swept away entirely. I need to ground myself too, just to balance everything out. Today I'm entirely inspired by that, and of course I'm going to make a DIY inspired by it, of course I am. First of all, I'm going to have my lemon balm tea. I'm so excited because it started to grow in the garden and it smells heavenly. I forgot how lovely it smelt. And then we're going to hunt for signs of new life to get some ideas for my DIY. It was time for a calming cup of lemon balm tea. A lovely tea if you just want to calm down, be present and balanced. It's high in antioxidants to fight illnesses, but also helps with brain fog and to uplift the mood, just like how spring does, even on this grey day. So I sat here, relaxed, and a few things started to show themselves to me. Tell you what also is so beautiful to hear this time of year, it's the water and the way it just flows. Like, that sounds so silly, but I'm looking over there and I'm seeing these little bubbles from a waterfall. Oh my goodness, it's so therapeutic, and you just know that the water has so much nutrients this time of year from everything that has disintegrated into it. So I might have to collect a couple of vials to use at my altar in a bit. But I just can't help to be extremely enchanted this year by the charming wood sorrel beneath my feet here on Fairies Island. And in fact, all of the little sprouts and how everything grows on the island, twisted and tangled through pieces of bark. Where a plant has water and soil and warmth, it then has a will, and nothing gets in its way to grow. But these wood sorrel, there was something about them that spoke to my heart for a lot of different reasons. This is such an important symbol in Ireland this time of year, and actually this is one of my grandma's brooches of wood sorrel here. To find something that grows in early spring that has hearts for leaves, it is definitely associated with fairies, and you'll find them in the most hidden, beautiful places in the forest. And when pirates had scurvy, they used to eat them as a source of vitamin C. And wood sorrel is even known as the fairy plant, and it's a sacred plant associated with the fairy folk. If you find, pick, eat, or make a wish upon a wood sorrel, it brings good luck, love, and protection against negative spirits. They also have 3 leaves, which is a very magical number, as the number 3 can represent balance and harmony, mind, body, and soul, and the triple goddess representing birth, life, and death. I started to graze around Fairies Island and collected a few things that drew themselves out to me, as a few pieces of nature upon this forest floor would now be transported into my home. Little wormy catkins now. slingshot. You'll also see me picking a lot of elder cones up here, but that's for something that I have planned for a little bit later on. I suppose this idea of as above, so below, the forest floor can kind of be unloaded onto anything, like a book, a box, a canvas, anything. I've personally got something I really want to make over. It's something I showed you guys in my last video, and it's not very me. I mean, what's inside it is very me, but at the moment it's bare and empty and it needs to be Alwynified. Back home, and before I started crafting, I wanted to give my home a cleanse and to help give it a balanced energy. I have been experimenting with different blends of scents to use as an incense, and I wanted something zingy and also something earthy as a nice contrast. I poured in this sacred water from the Fairy Falls, and into this a few drops of lemon essential oil and sandalwood essential oil. I added Ostara Wreath to help raise the energy within the home and myself, and cinnamon to help ground and protect. And I kept topping this up with water and kept a close eye on it. It smelt delicious. I have also been very attracted to cleansing energy with sound recently, as I think of what spring is all about: movement, vibrations, and frequencies rising. Whether that be roots growing or the sound of the birds, it's all a frequency. So this little bell will help shift the negative energy that is hardest to reach. And along with this, a bit of a spring clean, and this little sweep of pine needles will help bring some earthy energy and protection into my home. And now my altar had a spring clean and felt balanced. I could finally start making over my box. This box is where I store my crafting moss, and I could literally bathe in this stuff. It just needed to be a bit more exciting to look at. So I took out everything I had gathered, and much like the forest floor, I wanted this box to be completely perfectly imperfect. So I would place items anywhere as if they fell with a gust of wind, with the hope it would look good. I first removed the moss for safekeeping and painted the whole box an earthy brown shade inside and out. And once dry, I sporadically placed the items on. To preserve the catkins that were a little fragile, I dipped them into wax. But I was going to seal the wood sorrel after I placed them onto the box with a sealant. I also picked up some hazelnut seeds and added some dried hydrangeas. I know these don't grow on the forest floor, but They had heart-shaped leaves and had 3 petals, just like the wood sorrel, so I took this as a sign. To recreate the bluebell sprouts within the wood, I used dried rosemary and placed it in between sticks and coming out of little nooks and crannies, and it worked so well. And the last step was, of course, moss. I stuck on some dried moss that I'd collected from the woods a few weeks ago, and then the crafting moss. And I wanted it to be drenched in it, pouring down the sides of the box, but also to cover up any exposed glue. Lastly, I covered the whole box in a sealant so the nature would hopefully keep forever, but we have yet to find out. I placed my moss back inside and it was complete. A box inspired by the woodland floor in the early days of spring. Back on Fairies Island, and the woods recently has given me a lot of messages and left me pondering about something which I want to share with you. So I'm on the north of the island now, which is not very far, to be honest, from where I sat before, because it's literally just there. But I'm underneath this beautiful elder tree and I'm catching the elder cones that come from it, and I told you I had another little DIY that I really wanted to do today using these and something else, because I've had an idea recently. Basically, it's come from the last video of mine that I made, and I don't know if you remember that wand that transformed into a pirate sword that I put on it an elder cone and also a fir cone. It got me thinking, and I was thinking, what about the Oak King and the Holly King and the battle that they hold? I have read so much information that is kind of like counteracting these stories, because in some tales it says that the Holly King and the Oak King have a battle on the summer solstice and the winter solstice each year. But I also have been reading things that tells me that they have a battle on the equinoxes each year, when the Holly King or the Oak King is weak and then the oak or the holly is rising, so they battle and then take over. And I don't know about you guys, but the latter of those makes so much more sense to me. Of course, you would battle at a weak point and then you would win the battle, as opposed to when you're really strong. It wouldn't make much sense to me. So I've researched it, and just basically different traditions and different pagans honour different things and different ideas. I believe then at this point, this is when the deciduous trees, the Oak King is rising. He has his battle now because he's like, hang on a minute, I am here, what are you doing still here? I'm rising again. So that is why I'm collecting elder cones, because on my little wand that I created, the elder cones represented the Oak King and the deciduous trees, and the fir cones represented the Holly King and the evergreen trees. And I suppose that's the thing about forests, there's this beautiful combination of deciduous trees and evergreen trees. They are both beautiful. At different times of year we'll venture to different points in the woods. You know, they just mean such a different thing, I think, to different people. For me, this place is always great this time of year because, of course, there's new life here, and in the middle of winter it's a boggy mess, so I would not venture here then. But do you know where I would venture to if I was looking for fairy tale, evergreen, beautiful feelings? I would venture to the secret swamp. So I've got a little DIY that I really want to make. We're going to look for ideas here, and then we're going to venture there and we're going to see what we can find, and I'm so excited. babies. Hello, welcome. Who are you then? Who are you? So I searched for little hidden treasures on Fairies Island, and underneath the elder tree I found the most interesting treasure of all. A stick, all tangled and twisted together. It was a piece of vine, and I loved how, just like the wood sorrel, it had 3 pieces intertwined together. Just magical. It reminded me of a fairy wand, or dare I say, a sword, to start this battle between the 2 halves of the forest. So I thanked Fairies Island and was on my way to see the other side. And I could feel that the encounter between the Oak King and the Holly King had started. The evergreens at the secret swamp is quite a contrast from Fairies Island, I can tell you that. They tower over me, yet it shares many hidden secrets. Home, sweet home. It's hard because every time I'm here I'm like, this is my home, and every time I'm at the Fairy Island I'm like, this is my home. It's all my home. I think it's so hard to choose between the deciduous trees and the evergreen trees. They're both so beautiful at different times, so I'm not going to make a decision of which one I like most because I don't think it's actually even possible, but I do know that both give us so much. So we're gonna find some beautiful things here to put on my next DIY, including the mini fir cones. And let's see how mini they can go. That's a cutie. So it was time to see what treasures lied here upon the forest floor. A forest floor that was quite the contrary to Fairies Island. Fir needles and fir cones lie here and remain here all year round, which is very comforting. I just mistook some droppings for fir cones. I was wondering why they were so squidgy. Found me fir cones. Oh my goodness, so tiny. But little did I know, the secret swamp was also in battle and told me that it was ready to be passed down to the deciduous trees with a simple symbol. My attention has just been taken down here to this X here, like the rune X. And gosh, I'm trying to remember what it actually means. Something about like hugs and kisses? I don't know. We'll have to look that up when I get back. And also it kind of made me think like X marks the spot. Pirate vibes. If you've seen my last video, you know that I'm just channeling pirate energy at the moment. These like great adventures that I've been having are so much fun, and about this sword and the battle, I don't know, I'm just really going at the moment with what nature is trying to tell me. Maybe I should be a pirate, I don't know. Maybe I need to have a pirate themed tea party. But either way, I'm thoroughly enjoying my pirate moment. Let me share with you, let me show you my actual outfit I have on today, because it is piratey, okay? Pirate. I love these sleeves so much. But anyway, I thought that was really interesting. So we're just going to head back home, and hopefully with all of these items that I have acquired, make a beautiful equinox wreath inspired by the secret swamp and the Fairy Island. Just before I left, Of course, I found a sword just beneath my feet, made of pine. The battle was clearly at its peak now, so I tucked it into my belt, and it felt like I had completed my journey through both halves of the forest, both night and day, 12 hours light, 12 hours night, sun and moon, new and old, deciduous and evergreen. And I realised there was no need to look into what this X translates to. Of course, it's the 4 quarters of the year, the 2 solstices and the 2 equinoxes, and just like that, everything tied together, just like nature always does. So I returned home and made a lovely cup of tea before I started my next DIY. I have had this mini wreath for a long time, and now finally have had this great idea to unload on it. So this will be my equinox wreath. So I got out all of my findings and then organised them into deciduous and evergreen piles. This wreath will be split into 2 to represent the equinox, and to split it into 2, I'd thought I'd create a sword using the twisted vine from the Fairies Island. The symbolism of this from the Celtic knot and ties from the 3 vines is poetry in nature. I then tried to break the fir stick I found at the secret swamp, but these firs are tough and it wouldn't break. So I moved on to arrange the fir cones onto one side of the wreath, placing them sporadically, bunching them together, similar to how they grow on the fir tree, and these give protection. And any leftover fir cones or elder cones went into my little box of precious finds at my altar for a display for Ostara. And then I had a great thought. The first stick I tried to break in half had this cute little stuck out branch, so I snapped it off and stuck it together with the twisted vine, and this became the sword in the middle of the wreath using both aspects of both places. Perfect. So I'm going to gift the sword back to the secret swamp, just like I have a sword on Fairies Island. I then moved onto the other side and placed the elder cones here, and instead of breaking them off their little sticks, I placed them in bunches, like little families, to show how they grow on the trees, making it more naturalistic. I then kept going until I had completed the circle of cones. Divided up this mini fir branch I had and placed it around the wreath, shaping it around to look like an ongoing circle. For the elder cone side, I found some buds that had fallen from the floor and thought this was best to represent the deciduous trees, so I nestled them into their side of the wreath. And it was time to reflect, have a look at my wreath, and I realised it needed one more thing. It needs some moss. But I needed to wait until the next day to put it on because I needed to decorate the mossy box, which you saw earlier. Beautiful. Mossy heaven. And it was the final touch it needed. I placed it upon the lighter side of the year half, as the moss had that yellow undertone green, just like the new life had. But moss is of course everlasting, and none of my crafted items, or the woods in fact, would be complete without a sprinkling of moss in any place. I love them so much. And I love how all of these, like, everything just came together again, and I'm starting to realise I don't even need to plan my videos anymore because nature is just always there for me and always tells me what to do. So this beautiful metaphor is just everything right now, and just so metaphorical in so many different ways. But speaking of which, I promised the fairies that I would share it with them, and I've already made it. I just need to decorate it because I was going with this idea of as above, so below, things from deciduous, things from evergreens, and I was trying to come up with the ultimate flavour combination, and I think I found it. There have been many flavour combinations that I've tried, but never before this one. And I really wanted to turn this loaf cake into some kitchen witchery using the powerful magical flavours of lemon and rosemary. Lemon is so zingy and fresh and embodies spring in a nutshell. It's so cleansing it makes my mouth just water thinking about it. And rosemary, the evergreen hardy herb that is so grounding yet produces the most fairy tale-esque purple flowers, really can help protect us but also get in touch with our higher selves. So both ingredients in this cake will have a different idea attached to them, and this idea is of course so below as above. I first chopped the rosemary up, and the rosemary will act as something we want to get rid of, something you no longer need in your life. I really thought about this whilst working with the rosemary, and the strength and protection of the herb will really help us to find the strength to let go. And now the lemon, and I zested 2 lemons. The lemon will act as something we want to attract into our life, perhaps a new hobby or new skill. What's going to go in place of this thing that I'm going to let go of? What makes your inner self squeal with excitement and gives a fresh new perspective? The zestiness of the lemon can really cause excitement and passion to flow. My next step was to make the loaf cake, and it really is so simple. I measured everything out, and whilst I did this, I thought about the steps I would take to achieve letting go and building myself up to this new exciting adventure I wanted to embark upon. So I added unsalted butter, caster sugar, 2 large eggs, plain flour, corn flour, baking powder, bicarb, vanilla extract, fine salt, and sour cream. And stirred this all together, really focusing on my stomach and my solar plexus whilst I did this, and picturing it like a sun expanding within me and filling my whole body with strength. And after everything was combined, I was feeling strong. So to this mixture I added both the lemon and rosemary, prompting myself to think about what these both represented again whilst I poured them in. And then when I stirred it once again, I pictured myself with my final outcome, enjoying my new spring hobby, free of what was holding me back. So I placed this within a baking tin and baked it within the oven for 45 minutes. And whilst it was baking, I made the rosemary syrup, because if I didn't mention, what makes this cake so special is that it is a lemon and rosemary drizzle cake. I also couldn't help but make myself a rosemary tea. Rosemary's flavour is so different when used in baking and tea. It has a fresh, earthy sweetness to it, and it's so high in antioxidants, just like the lemon balm tea I made on the Fairies Island earlier. It carries the energy of wisdom, focus and memory, something this little fairy often struggles with. When my syrup was made, I took out the rosemary and placed it within a bowl of sugar. No, not to eat as a snack, but to crystallise the rosemary to put it on top of the cake later. Once I got the cake out the oven, I inserted a skewer and then poured into this all of the delicious rosemary syrup. And for today, it was complete. And well, it's safe to say that now, the next day, the fairies have waited long enough. They were very bored and I needed to perk them up, perhaps with a spring afternoon tea. The cake, are you ready? To make the icing on the cake, I mixed icing sugar with fresh lemon juice and poured it on top. And there is no need to worry about neatness here. In fact, the more homey, the more fairy tale-esque this becomes. And then once more I poured over the top the earthing rosemary, and the zingy lemon. What a beautiful flavour and colour combination this is. Now all I had to do was set up my table for the afternoon tea for one, plus the fairies. And it was time for the verdict on the cake. Oh yeah. Time for slice number 2. So enchanted ones, thank you so much for watching. I cannot believe the adventures we've had together and how everything is tied together. The earth is waking up and talking to us once again. And the sun in the sky is rising, but for now is equal with the night. And it is time to find that balance in our lives. And when we do, the fight between light and dark will come to an end. But I really think the message of the equinox and the fight between the Oak King and the Holly King is that we can have no light without the dark, and no darkness without the light. A blessed Ostara to you all. All my love, Alwyn. Yes, I just made it. All right. Give me 10 minutes, I'm just finishing filming, and I'll bring it over. I'll bring you a slice, okay? Yes, and for him too. It is piratey. I'm filming an Ostara video and I'm talking about myself being a pirate. I'm not mad at that.